this video, I'll be showing my editing process when it comes to editing photos in Lightroom and how to make them looking from this to this. I'd like to point out that the way I edit pictures is not at all perfect, and I still have a long way to go when it comes to editing, and that everyone has their own taste when it comes to editing photos, and that there isn't an actual rule that you have to follow in order to edit photos. This is all a matter of preference. To start editing with is Justin Bice's 340i BMW, which is an F30 chassis. It's in beautiful alpine white, and the first thing we're gonna do is, since this is a landscape photo, I'm not gonna do any cropping, but if you're going to use this photo or any photo as your photo for Instagram, then you would have to crop it to make it a little bit smaller, but since I'm not going to be doing that, I'm just gonna keep it as shot. I'm just gonna probably crop it a little bit here so the car is a little bit more in center and there's not much space left here. But other than that, this is perfect. This car is very clean and well done, so we don't have to worry much about that. Since the photo is a little bit darker because it was a bit cloudy that day, I'm just gonna raise up the exposure just a tad bit, contrast a little bit if you want to. We're gonna add a little bit highlights. You can play with these a little bit to see what fits your needs. I think that is the best way to learn, is just to play with these to see what they do and whatnot. Shadows, I don't think we're gonna need to touch that at all. Whites and blacks we're gonna just leave as is. And temperature, I'm gonna raise it up a little bit to 0.5. If you want to make your photos a lot nicer and cooler, you can do that, but I'm not a big fan of that. So, and for this day it fits for it to be a bit warmer because it was like 90 degrees that day. Next, you can play and add a little bit of tint, and that's what I'm also gonna do. So far the photo went from this to this with just a few minor changes. I'm not gonna play with vibrance and saturation, but if you want to, you sure can. Actually, I changed my mind when I play with this, so we're gonna keep those all at 5. You can also play here with saturation of each color. First, I'm gonna go with red just to make those taillights pop a bit better. As you can tell, they made quite a little bit of difference. And to make the car in the back a little bit pop, although it isn't the main focus of this picture. You can also change this to make the trees in the background and the grass here pop. What I usually do is I change it to this kind of green. And you can also desaturate it if you want to, but I'm just gonna desaturate just a tad bit. Next thing I'm gonna add is a little bit of vignette in order to make the car more stand out, since it darkens the edges. Another thing, if you don't want to use vignette, you can also go to masking. Go radial gradient, make a big circle and just make the entire car pop a little bit more. You add the exposure on the car, then you duplicate and invert mask, and then what you do is just darken the exposure. That also works really well, but I'm not going to be doing that simply because I think vignette does a tad bit better when it comes to this. So I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna turn on my vignette just like so. I'm gonna also add a little bit of clarity, which makes wheels and everything, the edges, more pop like this. I don't know why it does that, but either way, we went from photos looking like this to looking like this. There isn't much I can do else with this photo. You can also add, if you want to, linear gradient mask. What I like to do sometimes from this is add it like this, and the haze right here, which makes it more, how would I say, like cloudy in a way, more moody. That's the term a lot of people like to use. So yeah, you can play with that as well, or you can bring down the exposure to make the sky nicer, I guess. Just bring up the temperature a bit. This is how it looks now. I think it's significantly better to add a bit of redness to make those taillights pop. Of an engine bay of a BMW G80 M3 that has an S58 engine. The reason why I like this particular engine bay is because the owner added lots of red accents across the entire engine bay, as well as lots of carbon fiber parts, which make it look way better than stock. And another reason why I took this picture particularly is because of this beautiful 50th anniversary BMW emblem. So the first thing we're gonna do to this picture is we're gonna add a little bit of exposure so we can see the engine bay a little better. I mean, look at all of this carbon fiber. I mean, the attention to detail of this engine is absolutely insane. I absolutely love it. We're gonna bring up the contrast down so we can make it pop a little bit more. Highlights, I don't need to play with that. Shadows, a little bit. Well, when you make it pop like this, even more, it just makes you appreciate the work and effort put in a lot more. We're gonna raise up the temperature a little bit, just to tint maybe a little bit as well. For red, I'm just gonna add the saturation a little bit more to make it pop like this, right? And the next thing, maybe another color I will be doing is blue because of the emblem. So far so good. So far it looks like a bare photo, like a raw photo. So we're gonna change that by doing a little bit of masking. Gonna do a little bit of radial gradient. We're gonna do it across the entire engine bay to make it pop. This S58. Add a little bit of exposure and temperature just like so. And for the rest, we're gonna duplicate an invert mask and we're gonna make it less lit up just like so. Actually, I'm just gonna take off the temperature on that one because it makes it look out of place like so. The next thing I'm gonna do is with the blacks, I'm gonna see down just a notch and the white just a little bit like so. So I think so far so good. Then we're gonna add a little bit of vignette. I love using vignette with almost every single one of my photos. It just makes the center of the photo pop significantly more. You can play on the midpoint how you want it to be. I usually keep it like so. And how you want stronger to be. I like it to be feathered a lot, because if it's not, it just makes like a big circle, which in my opinion looks very ugly. So just like so. If you want to, you can crop the photo to make only the engine bay, but I don't want to do that really, because I want the emblem to be caught in the picture. So yeah, went from this to this. It's very simple, nothing special. I don't want to add anything else except for clarity to make it a bit more sharp. It makes the carbon fiber pops a lot more. Wow, that looks way better. So we went from this to this. The next photo we'll be editing is of another G80 M3. This one is from Kies Motorsports. This is their G80 M3, which has this beautiful green color that I absolutely love, paired with these wheels that are, you know, like golden-ish. So what we're gonna do is crop this photo, because this is a vertical photo and will most likely be used for my Instagram, which I'll link down below. So just gonna crop it like so, bring it down just a little bit, and we're gonna crop it like this. The reason why I'm using 4:4:5 ratio is because that is proven to be the best ratio for Instagram photos. So you can cover the most of the app when someone is scrolling, so it takes up more space. If it's not, like in landscape photo like this one, it will take a little bit less space, and oftentimes people just scroll over it because they can't see as much. We're gonna add a little bit of exposure. We're gonna add contrast as well. Highlights, we can add a little bit. Shadows, I want shadows so we can see more of the tire here. So that's perfect. I'm gonna add a little bit of temperature because it makes the golden color pop a lot more, and it just makes overall picture look warmer. Then we're gonna add a little bit of tint. That's a little bit too much, maybe like a 5. Perfect. Vibrance, you can add vibrance, but I'm just gonna add a little bit because if you add too much, it just looks tacky and just doesn't look professional, doesn't look clean. So that is why I suggest people to use a little bit of vibrance and saturation to not ruin the photo. Next, now this is my favorite part for this photo particularly because it has a lot of green and golden. So we're gonna bump this up a little bit, saturate the color itself, and luminance a little bit like this. Makes it look way better. Then what we're gonna do is add a little bit of saturation on this, like so. So it makes more of a golden and betterish color, like so. Way better. Then after that, I'm gonna go ahead and play a little bit with the orange color, like so. Next, I'm gonna do a little bit of clarity, vignette of course, and a little bit of more temperature because I feel like it's a little bit better that way. So that's pretty much it. I'm actually gonna bring down the exposure a little bit. So we went from this to this. I think we need a little bit more vignette on this one, and something is not sitting well with me, so I'm just gonna play a little bit more with the colors here, just like so. I think that's pretty good. Then what we're gonna do is mask and do a little bit of linear here, just to make it look like there's sunlight coming in to the picture, just like so. Also a little bit of saturation. We went from this to this, which I think looks way better, but obviously you can do this however you want. This is another Dahled G81 M3. I'm pretty sure I did not pronounce that right. This car is very unique since there aren't any sold in the United States because it's illegal to have them here. But it was brought all the way from Europe for the sake of Kies Autoshow, which was absolutely awesome to see this car in person. It's actually a wagon, but you can't see it in this picture because this is just the bare front end of the car. But you can see Dahled here. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. I'm trying my best. So yeah, I'm gonna be using this photo right here. Actually, I'm gonna add a little bit of exposure here, not too much because then it just turns all white here. Contrast, we're gonna do a little bit. This here is not actually just the distortion of the image, it's actually just the floor. As you can see, it's a little bit rocky, so that's the reflection of how clean this car is. So the next thing I'm gonna do is do a little bit of highlights to make the sky pop a little bit more, because if I don't, it just looks all together like this. It makes the car separate from the background a little bit, as well as shadows. I'm just gonna bring that up a little bit to better see the detail of the grille of this car. Just massive. When it first came out, I was actually hating the front end of this car, but now that I saw it in person, I think it's beautiful. On this car in particular, I mean, look at all of this. It just looks gorgeous, especially paired with these headlights here. Just beautiful. It's just masterpiece. We're gonna add a little bit of temperature as well as tint, maybe vibrance, but I don't think it's necessary. Then after that, we're gonna play a little bit with the colors. I'm gonna play a little bit with the blue because of the headlights to make them pop a tad bit more. Next, I'm gonna play a little bit with the orange. This is how it looks so far. We're gonna play a little bit with the red because of the red stripe in the emblem, and also, but actually not too much because it makes it look weird. So yeah, I think that's good enough. Next, we're gonna do a little bit of clarity, not too much because it makes it look tacky. Just a little bit of clarity. Dehaze if you want, but in this picture I don't think dehazing is too good. Vignette, of course, I love adding vignette to my cars. Just such an awesome looking BMW. I can't believe I used to hate these at the beginning when they first were announced. Now I absolutely love the way they look. So yeah, the last photo of today's video will be on the track where we have this E92 next to what I believe is an M8 Grand Coupe. I'm going to crop this photo to a 5x4 because it's going to be used for my Instagram. So let's do that real quick. We're gonna crop it to 5.4. We're gonna do it like this, so the cars are the center, or we can make it a little bit smaller, just like so. I think that looks perfect. We're gonna bring up the exposure just a tad bit, the contrast down as well. Highlights are going to be lower to a 76. Whites, we can bring that up, and the blacks we can also bring that down a little bit, which I think looks pretty good. We're gonna add a little bit of temperature to make the photo a little bit more warmer, because if I add more, it just makes it look very goofy in my opinion. Then we're gonna play with the reds a little bit. Can play with greens in the back. This is where I like to put the hue like this and desaturate just a tad bit. Luminance like so. Next, we're gonna do a little bit of vignette. Dehaze the photos just a tad bit and add a little bit of clarity of radio gradient like so to make the center of the photo pop. Then I'm gonna add a little bit more texture like so, and then duplicate and invert and make the texture a little bit less so it's more blurry. I think this looks awesome. The next thing I'm going to do is, so yeah, I think this is it. So we went from this to this, which I think looks way better. If you like this video, please leave a like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. It will mean a lot to me. And to see more of these photos, go ahead and check out my Instagram, which will be linked down there in the description.